The message came in while I was folding scarves behind the counter. Just another weekday afternoon at my boutique. Soft music playing. Sunlight spilling through the front windows. Mrs. Peterson browsing like she always did, running her fingers over fabrics she didn't need but loved anyway. My phone buzzed once. I glanced down. I'm leaving you. I'm moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I already emptied our joint account. That was it. No griting. No explanation. No apology. 12 years of marriage reduced to a text message and a joke. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack when I smiled at Mrs. Peterson and asked if she preferred the blue scarf or the silver one. The only sign that my husband had just blown up our life was a tightening around my eyes. Something only I would notice. I wrapped her purchase in our signature silver paper, thanked her warmly, and watched her leave before I typed back. Good luck. My name is Claire Harrison. I'm 38 years old. And I had just received the most callous goodbye imaginable. While Mark was probably congratulating himself, imagining tears, begging, panic, I calmly locked up my boutique for the day. I flipped the sign to closed, set the alarm, and walked to my car like nothing had happened. Because the truth was this wasn't sudden. The signs had been lining up for months. Late nights that didn't match his deposits. Sudden password changes on his phone. The gym obsession. New clothes. New slang that sounded ridiculous coming from a 45-year-old man trying to outrun his own reflection. 3 months earlier, I'd found a receipt for an expensive dinner for two, on a night he claimed he was working late. I hadn't confronted him. Instead, I prepared. That same week, I opened a new bank account at a different bank. Quietly. A week later, when he suggested combining our finances to simplify things, I agreed cheerfully, while transferring my personal savings out of reach. The joint account he'd just emptied? It only ever held enough to keep him comfortable and unsuspecting. 2 months of regular deposits. Nothing more. Everything else was already protected. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Melissa. The new receptionist at his office. I'd met her at the Christmas party. Watched her laugh too loudly at his jokes. Noticed the way she touched his arm when she thought no one was paying attention. Young enough to believe she was special. Naive enough to think this was love. I didn't respond. I called my lawyer instead. The time's come, I said calmly. He made his move. Then we'll make ours, she replied. The papers are ready. File them tomorrow, I said. No ruse. Let him enjoy his victory. Another message popped up. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger. At least you still have your little shop. My little shop. The boutique I built from scratch. The one that made more money than his middle management job. The business he dismissed as a hobby, while quietly benefiting from it for years. I smiled. That evening, I went home. My house. The one I inherited from my grandmother. The one I'd kept solely in my name despite Mark's repeated suggestions to make it official. Another instinct that had paid off. As I organized documents for my lawyer, I found our wedding album. Mark looked so different back then, before insecurity turned him into a parody of himself. Now he wore shirts too tight, tried too hard to sound young, chased people half his age. My phone kept buzzing. Each text more arrogant than the last. I've been planning this for months. Melissa understands me. Maybe you'll find someone your own age. Already told my family. They agree. I screenshotted every message and dropped them into my evidence folder. Then came the one that made me laugh out loud. By the way, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift, LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. I need to report fraudulent charges, I said calmly, and remove my husband as an authorized user. The representative's professionalism barely masked her satisfaction as she canceled the tickets and hotel reservation. Mark and Melissa would arrive at the airport tomorrow with nowhere to go. Another buzz. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. Did he really think he owned my grandmother's home? I poured a glass of wine, the good one. Tomorrow, Mark would learn some very expensive lessons about property law, separate assets, and underestimating the woman he thought he'd left behind. But tonight? Tonight, I enjoyed the quiet and plan my next chapter. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. If this opening hooked you, give it a like, it really helps the channel. Comment below, what would you have done after reading that text? Morning came with silence. No apology text. No second thoughts. Just the quiet confidence of a man who believed he'd already won. I left my phone face down and went to work. Fridays were always busy at the boutique, and a new shipment of designer handbags had arrived. Life doesn't pause just because someone detonates your marriage. Customers came in, admired displays, talked about weekend plans. I smiled, rang up purchases, and unpacked inventory like everything was normal. Around noon my phone rang. Mark's mother. I put her on speaker while adjusting a window display. "Claire dear," she began carefully. "Mark told us everything. He said you've been controlling for years. That you drove him away. And now he says you're being vindictive, interfering with his travel plans." I didn't raise my voice. "Did he mention emptying our joint account?" I asked calmly. "Or charging flights and hotels for himself and his girlfriend on our shared credit card?" Silence. "Well," she said slowly, "he did say you left him no choice." "I have his texts," I replied. "Would you like me to read them? The one where he mocks my age? Or the one where he laughs about taking the money?" Another pause. "He did seem cruel," she admitted. "I told him that message was inappropriate." "I appreciate the call," I said politely. "But my lawyer has advised minimal contact with Mark's family during the proceedings." "Proceedings?" she repeated. "Yes," I said. "Goodbye, Barbara." By mid-afternoon, gossip had started moving faster than facts. Mark's sister, Amanda, wasn't so subtle. Mutual friends began texting updates like reporters covering a scandal. Apparently, Mark and Melissa had ended up at a budget motel near the airport. Their first-class fantasy downgraded to stained carpets and flickering lights. He tried using his personal credit cards, but those were maxed out, another red flag I'd noticed months earlier. My lawyer called with an update. "The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday," she said. "Given his admission of emptying the joint account and the documented fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze remaining assets." "Has he been served?" I asked. "Not yet. But he will be, at the motel address." I smiled. Another text buzzed through. "You think you're clever, but I made copies of all the boutique's financials. Half that business is mine." I forwarded it to my lawyer without responding. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets, business entities, and documented ownership. Monday arrived faster than I expected. The courthouse smelled like old paper and impatience. Mark showed up wearing tight designer jeans and a blazer that screamed midlife crisis. Melissa waited outside, her youth suddenly less impressive under fluorescent lights. My lawyer laid out the evidence calmly. His texts. His admission of emptying the account. The credit card fraud. The year-long pattern of hidden expenses. Mark's hastily hired attorney tried. My client admits to some rash decisions, but Mrs. Harrison's actions were vindictive and calculating. "Calculating?" my lawyer replied. "You mean prudent?" My client protected her separate assets and maintained detailed records. That's not vindictive. That's responsible. The judge reviewed my documentation carefully. The deed to my house, in my name alone. The boutique's incorporation papers mine. Years of cleanly separated finances Mark had always mocked as obsessive. "Mr. Harrison," the judge said, looking directly at him. "You admitted via text message to deliberately emptying a joint account and using shared credit cards to fund travel with your girlfriend. Do you deny this?" Mark shifted. "I was just trying to make a clean break." "By committing financial fraud?" the judge asked dryly. She ordered all shared assets frozen and demanded the return of the funds he'd removed. "But the money's gone," Mark protested. "Then I suggest you find a way to replace it," she replied. "This court takes a very dim view of funding extramarital adventures with marital assets." Outside the courthouse, I heard Melissa questioning him in a sharp whisper. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen?" I didn't stop walking. The weeks that followed were a parade of desperation. Mark tried claiming the boutique had been his idea, that he'd supported it. That moral encouragement should count as ownership. Every claim collapsed under documentation. He's spiraling, my lawyer told me during one update. His girlfriend's social media suggests they're now living in her studio apartment. Apparently, living on a receptionist's salary wasn't the glamorous escape he'd imagined. His family's tone changed too, Amanda admitted. He played the victim so convincingly. But seeing those texts, I'm ashamed we believed him. The boutique thrived, fueled by quiet support and loud word of mouth. Women came in specifically to shop with me, some sharing stories eerily similar to mine. Men like that never expect us to be smarter than them, one customer said while buying a handbag. Mark's texts kept coming. Anger, guilt, manipulation. You ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. We can still work something out. I forwarded them all to my lawyer. Meanwhile, I felt something growing where panic should have been. Certainty. Because for the first time, Mark wasn't controlling the narrative. I was. If this chapter kept you hooked, give it a like, it really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. The silence came back first. Not the empty kind. The settled kind. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. 3 months after Mark's dramatic exit, my house finally felt like mine again. Not because his things were gone. Those had been boxed and collected weeks earlier, but because his presence had stopped echoing through the walls. The divorce moved faster than he expected. Apparently, draining accounts, mocking your spouse in writing, and funding an affair with shared money doesn't play well in court. Every time he tried to stall, the judge reminded him that arrogance wasn't a legal strategy. By the final hearing, Mark looked smaller, thinner, less certain. Melissa didn't come. According to mutual acquaintances, she'd left weeks earlier, right around the time his credit card stopped working and the reality of starting over lost its shine. She posted a vague quote about choosing peace and deleted all photos of him by morning. Mark didn't mention her once. He sat across from me, hands clasped, eyes darting between lawyers like he was hoping someone would rescue him. The judge didn't rush. She reviewed everything again. The text messages, the bank transfers, the fraudulent charges, the boutique's paperwork, my grandmother's deed. Then she looked at Mark. You acted with intent, she said plainly, and you underestimated the consequences. She awarded me full ownership of my home, full control of my business, ordered restitution for the drained account, and finalized the divorce without a shred of sympathy for his theatrics. Mark tried one last thing outside the courtroom. I never thought you'd actually fight back, he said quietly. That was your mistake, I replied. You confused kindness with weakness. He nodded, like the words finally landed. I guess I thought you needed me, he admitted. I needed respect, I said. You were optional. That was the last time we spoke. Life didn't suddenly become cinematic. There was no victory montage. No applause. Just calm. Mornings at the boutique felt lighter. Customers lingered longer. The place buzzed in a new way, less obligation, more joy. Sales went up. So did my confidence. Women started coming in not just to shop, but to talk. One whispered, I left my husband last year. Watching you handle this, it helped. Another said, my sister's going through something similar. I sent her your story. I never told it dramatically. I just told it honestly. Mark tried rebuilding his image online. Vague posts, motivational quotes, claims about toxic relationships and finding himself. People stopped engaging. Turns out, when the truth is documented, gaslighting loses its power. One afternoon, I received a transfer notification. The restitution payment. I stared at the number for a long moment before closing the app. It wasn't about the money. It was about acknowledgement. That he'd been wrong. That I'd been right to protect myself. That trusting your instincts isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. I used some of that money to expand the boutique. New designer line. Better lighting. A small seating area where women could sit, breathe, feel unhurried. I kept the rest untouched. A reminder that security is built, not begged for. Sometimes I think back to that first text. The arrogance. The laughter. The certainty that I'd crumble. He thought leaving me would break me. Instead, it clarified everything. I didn't lose a husband. I lost dead weight. And in doing so, I gained something far more valuable than revenge. Peace. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like, it really helps the channel. Comment below, what would you have done if you received that text?